We're a welcoming congregation with membership for all persons who agree with our principles and our sources. We don't have any single creed or dogma to which we must subscribe to be a Unitarian Universalist, but we do have a set of awesome principles which inspire our living tradition of Unitarian Universalism. My name is the Reverend Lee Marie Sanchez, and I'm very happy to say I serve the congregation of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Laguna Beach. Bringing her musical talents to us this morning will be Carol Cole, our music director, and our most awesome technician, Pam Flodman, is the one that's making all of this possible. She's the one that's filming us and putting all the things together. I'm so glad that you, our fellowship, our friends, and our members are here along with us, as well as the number of guests. Welcome and welcome home. I want to share with you a reading that was written by a colleague of a friend of mine, Gretchen Haley, who wrote this specifically for this time in which we are enduring this suffering and struggling with the coronavirus. She writes, "There is enough space between us to hold all that you are carrying, all that you have been waking and wondering and worrying and wearing out with confusion or attempts to control, sometimes trying to find a sense of normal in your irritability, your curiosity, your fragile sobriety, your numb disbelief, your loneliness, your exhaustion, your daily question, is it an allergy? Is it just the flu? Or is it the virus? And your joy, because we can hold that too, and we can bless all of it here and hold it together. For this time we bless it and we call it out, just as we are, each of us, beloved. Here in this far apart space that is also close in, so much remains uncertain with each passing breath. The ground is shifting, and all we can say for sure is that we are caught in a tangled blessing of life, of grief and gratitude together. Like always, except more, with the forces of spring and the spinning of the earth, we are turning, we are becoming, and beginning again, offering ourselves like a crocus flower, breaking through with a wild beauty, ready for whatever comes next." So good to be with all of you this morning. Our centering thought will be on our screen, and if you'd like to say that with me, we can do that together. Here it is. A tomb is no place to stay when each morning announces our reprieve, and we know we are granted yet another day of living. We are blessed to have a wonderful music director who is going to play and sing with us. Morning Has Broken, and the words will be on your screen, and feel free to sing them right there wherever you are.
Morning has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for the spring, fresh from the word. Sweet love rains new fall, sunlit from heaven, like the first dew fall on the first grass. Praise for the sweetness of the wet garden, spring in completeness, where God's feet pass. Mine is the sunlight the morning, born of the one light, Eden's of flame. Praise with elation, praise every morning, God's recreation of the new day.
This morning we'll light our flaming chalice. It is our symbol of Unitarian Universalism, and we light it before every gathering, small or large, all around the world. The woman you see with me celebrating our birthdays last November is Barbara Williams Pemberton. Barbara was my worship associate for a few years, and she was one of the longest-term members of our fellowship. Her tradition was to dedicate the lighting of a chalice every Sunday morning to a person or persons or a cause that she wanted to honor or to bless. This service, was Barbara's all-time favorite. And she kept that image of Jesus in his jeans in her folder all the time. Barbara died a few months ago, and we missed her beyond imaginations. If you have a chalice or a candle now, you can light it if you choose. This is mine. And we are going to go to the living room of Jim Pemberton, Barbara's husband, and Cindy Williams, her daughter, as they light their chalice in honor and love for our beautiful Barbara. Thank you, Jim. And thank you, Cindy. We have an unison affirmation, which we ask people to say together. And if you are comfortable doing it, you can do that with us. The words are on our screens. May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity. May we know once again that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe, to this community, and to each other. Now, more than ever, we are physically distancing, but we are together in the spirit. The call to worship this morning is from my old professor, the Reverend Richard Gilbert, spoken at the First Church, Rochester, New York, many years ago. He said, Jesus of Nazareth, the man, knew nothing of creeds, Nicene or Apostles or Athanasian or Westminster or any of that. He knew nothing of original sin or atonement or salvation or any of those terms now bandied about by Christian theologians. He would have been astounded at the ecclesiastical structures assembled over the centuries in his name. Jesus wouldn't have had a clue about what it meant to be born again in Christ. All this was superimposed on his life and work and extracted by theological mining of considerable imagination. For this morning, I ask you, what might be the conversation that Jesus would have if he were invited to the White House today? How would he feel, say, about our current mismanagement of this health crisis? How would he feel about the climate and economic crisis? What would he say to us about homelessness, about our neighbors without homes? My hope is that you will think upon these words while we hear our sermon this morning and during the rest of the worship as we sing and we ponder today on Easter Sunday. Every Sunday, and perhaps even more now, we both give and receive our morning's offering for the care of this fellowship. And now for us to be able to bring these worship services to you on Sunday, as well as some other activities that we have in the works. You may see how to contribute on the screen. And we'll give you a moment to get a pencil if you need one to write down one way to pay our contributions towards our congregation would be on PayPal, www.paypal.me/UUFLB, or to our physical address where our treasurer, Tom Baru, picks up those checks. And I must say, we have received some lovely notes along with the checks that have been written to us, and we thank you so much. You know who you are. And others have been so generous with us with their time and talent. We thank everyone for making this congregation the wonderful, beautiful community that it is. Let's now move into some moments of quiet meditation, prayer, or reflection, each according to our own practices. Close your eyes if you're comfortable. If you are in a position where you can place your feet on the floor, you may want to ground yourself to Mother Earth in that way, or just sit in any way in which you are relaxed. Take a deep breath in and let it out long. Let's do that again. Let's take a deep breath in and let it out long and long and long. Now, letting your breath come and go naturally, relax your jaw. Let your tongue be soft against the inside of your teeth. Let your face be soft. Let your eyes be gentle and rest. Feel the stress and the tension lifting from your body. Now, your eyes still closed, notice your hands. You may want to comfortably place them on your lap, perhaps, relaxed. Really feel the life in your hands. You may even feel them now pulsating in a pleasant way. Let that feeling move out through your fingers and let that sensation be with you for just a moment. Then allow the sensation to float away. It's almost as if you have no hands at all, just the idea of hands resting in your lap. Let that feeling pervade your whole body, resting. We need so much rest now. We may be isolated in our homes, but we are restless. We are restless, waiting for who knows what comes next. So today, we can enjoy the experience of sitting in restorative silence as we pause to dwell inward, to feel that spirit of life meeting us where we are, in the struggles we choose for ourselves or that have been chosen for us, in ways we move forward in our lives and bring our world forward with us. It's right to pause to remember those who need love and support, who are ill or who are in pain, either in body or in spirit, who are lonely, who have been wronged. Let us open our minds and hearts to a place of quiet, to a silent prayer for the healing of pain and the soft, gentle coming of love. So let's sit together for a few moments in silence. When you're ready, open your eyes and we'll sing together. Carol will be singing and playing from her home at her beautiful Steinway piano, which we can't see, but we can enjoy, and enjoy her lovely voice. As we sing Spirit of Life, Fuente de Amor, the words are printed on your screen.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Fruit on me Those wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Fuente de amor, ven hacia mí. Mi corazón atende tu compasión. A justicia de la vida. Fuente de amor, ven a mí, ven a mí. I had a name, what would it be, and would you call it to his face? If you were faced with him in all of his glory, what would you ask him if you had just one question? Yeah, yeah, God is great. Yeah, yeah, God is good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. All he done was one of us, just as long like one of us, just a stranger on a bus, trying to make his way home, trying to make his way home. If God had a face, what would it look like, and would you want to see? The scene meant that you would have to believe things like heaven and Jesus and the saints, all of the prophets. Yeah, yeah, God is great. Yeah, yeah, God is good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What if God was one of us? Just as long like one of us, just a stranger on a bus, trying to make his way home, trying to make his way home, back up to heaven all alone. Nobody calling on the phone, except for the Pope, maybe in Rome.
What if God was one of us? Asked Joan Osborne, the singer, lyricist for that song. Just a slob like one of us, just a stranger on the bus, trying to make his way home. If God had his name, what would it be? And would you call it to his face if you were faced with him in all his glory? What would you ask if you had just one question? God was one of us, just a slob like one of us, just a stranger on the bus trying to make his way home. just trying to make his way home. I can't remember when I first heard the Joan Osborne song, What If God Was One of Us? But I do recall feeling moved by somehow that God could be one of us. Just a slob like one of us, a stranger on the bus, make his way home like a rolling stone back up to heaven. Nobody calling, nobody on the phone. I remember feeling so sorry for God. Or maybe it was just Joan Osborne's voice, or the melody perhaps. It's one of those that stay in your head. It sure was something because it did strike a chord with millions of people all over the world, and it was a top 40 hit in 1995 when it was released. Interestingly enough, it never occurred to me when I was first hearing the song, and I don't know why, but that this was about the incarnation of God into the human form by way of Jesus. Maybe because it also begs the question, if seeing the face of God meant that you would have to believe, that you'd really have to believe in heaven and Jesus and all the prophets, and that wasn't me. Although I was nominally a Roman Catholic growing up, looking back, I don't think I ever really embraced Christianity at all. In fact, while I enjoyed the beauty of the Mass when I went with my mother to church, I didn't like looking up at the suffering Jesus on the crucifixion at the front of the church. I found Unitarian Universalism at age 15, and I didn't encounter Jesus again until about 30 years later, when I was teaching Unitarian Universalist Sunday School, because our children learn about the world religions, including Judaism and Christianity, when they attend our classes. It was with my class of 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders that I became captivated by Rabbi Jesus, because we learned about Rabbi Jesus as the radical reformer that he truly was. But I didn't feel like I ever lost Jesus, because I didn't think I needed to find him either, but I certainly became more curious after that experience with those young children. Jumping ahead many years later, during my experience as a full-time emergency room trauma chaplain in a large inner-city Catholic hospital, my notions of Catholicism seriously changed because I recognized how they put serving the poor first. And with my patients, I began to comprehend their identification with the suffering Jesus. A few years ago, while I was yet preparing another Easter sermon, I was reading several captivating books about Jesus the man, because I intended to write a sermon about the historical Jesus. But I ran out of time while getting ready to go to New Jersey to teach. I had preached Easter sermons before, focusing, as I said, on the historical Jesus. And I was thinking perhaps I would invite Jesus to come to my church, along with Buddha and Confucius and maybe Abraham Lincoln. And I was thinking of maybe doing something like a Steve Allen Meeting of the Minds. Some of you are as old as I am, and you can remember that television show. It was a good idea that I had done all the research, though, because a friend of mine who was attending my workshop asked me to travel with her to New York City. I didn't have my Easter sermon done, but I couldn't turn down my friend, who was so much fun. She was a native New Yorker, and we went. So, since I was still looking for Jesus for my sermon, what could be better than finding him perhaps in New York with my friend who was Jewish? You never know. Pictures of my teaching assignment was being held in New Jersey at a retreat center, and it was a Catholic convent. Pictures of Jesus were everywhere. Outside on the grounds, there were these little wooden shelters with pictures of the crucified Jesus inside. They were on all the paths wherever you walked. It was raining a lot, and it was a beautiful place, and I would stop in front of those little huts of Jesus and not really know what to make of them. The presence of the nuns there, who were wearing habits, was somehow disturbing, and at the same time, it was comforting. The day after we arrived at the convent, about 36 big, burly, multiple tattooed guys of various races and ethnicities walked into the communal dining room where we were eating. I learned that they were the Matt Talbots. I learned that they were recovering alcoholics and addicts. Addicts who had decided to give their lives over to Christ, to study, to prayer, and to good works in a tough spiritual rehabilitation program, inspired by the life of an Irish union organizer whose name was Matt Talbot. Around 1900, about 50 years before Alcoholics Anonymous was established, a priest had helped a man named Matt Talbot recover from his addictions. He used a program that had actually been developed by Irish monks in the 6th and 7th centuries. Today, these men, the Matt Talbots, are expected to make 2 rigorous spiritual retreats with their group every year. Many of the Matt Talbots were physically disabled in many different ways. One mealtime, I noticed a man helping another man with some kind of a medical apparatus. And as I was looking at the man, I looked out the window, and what did my eyes see but one of those little huts with the crucified Jesus inside, with the suffering Jesus, the man suffering. When the workshop I was teaching was completed, we said goodbye to the nuns and we were off to New York City. There we settled into a little Unitarian Universalist church-owned apartment right off Park Avenue. Very cheap because we were Unitarian Universalist professionals. The apartment house is over 100 years old, and it looks like it. While it's charming, it was a 3-story walk-up, which we had to drag our luggage up to the top. And it had a semi-working toilet, whom my friend tried to fix the whole time we were there. I only half expected Bert and Ernie to be out on the fire escape. But almost immediately after we arrived, in a New York minute, as they say, my friend ran us off to the First Universalist Church of New York City to see the Vagina Monologues. Yes, the play was being staged at the Fourth Universalist Society of New York City. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the Vagina Monologues, this is a women's readers' theater in which each woman reads or recounts a real woman's story, which relates somehow to the vagina, be it through sex, love, rape, menstruation, birth, orgasm, the variety of the names given to the vagina, and as a simple physical aspect of a woman's body. A recurring theme throughout the piece is the vagina as a tool for female empowerment and the ultimate embodiment of individuality. They had little red vagina bracelets for sale, and I bought one as a souvenir. The power of the play is amazing. It is riveting, it is frightening, it is funny, and it is beautiful. All of the profits from the tickets to the play go to women's shelters or to groups opposed to female mutilization and femicide. We were informed about the facts that many millions of women endure female circumcision, etc., are murdered all over the world, and we are shocked. At the end of the play, in the audience, those who are in the audience who have been raped, tortured, or beaten are asked to stand. Then those of us who know people who've endured those horrible experiences are asked to stand. And finally, those who support those women who've had those experiences are asked to stand. And at the end, you have a few hundred people standing. It is terrible and it is beautiful as we all stand together. I bet you didn't expect to hear these kinds of things in an Easter sermon, did you? Me neither, but it's important to what I have to say. The next morning, it's Sunday. So naturally, my friend and I go to a Unitarian Universalist church. We jump in a taxi. We race across town to the Unitarian Universalist Church of All Souls of New York City. Built over 100 years ago, 750 members, very East Coast UU, very high church. They had the church auction that year at Christie's, and Bill Clinton and his wife, Hillary, took part with all of the proceeds going to social justice in New York City. Downstairs of the church, 350 Unitarian Universalist children are making up Easter baskets for the local women's and children's shelter. I'm introduced to Galen Gingrich, who is one of my heroes. He's a senior minister there. And he's got a big apron on and bunny ears, and he's helping the children fill the Easter baskets. Upstairs, he'll be preaching for us about Palm Sunday. There he tells us the story of Jesus and the woman who has been accused of adultery and is about to be stoned. He relates a modern day story, how a few days previous to that, in Pakistan, an imam and a Muslim judge risked their lives by saving a woman accused of adultery by being murdered by having stones thrown at her. I can hardly catch my breath. And I'm recalling the night before, the play, the vagina monologues, and all of us, the men and the women, standing against the kinds of things that these two brave men had stood against. And I asked myself, what would Jesus do? What is it about this story that is so meaningful for me? After the service, my throat is still full. There are tears in my eyes, and I dash out to shake the hand of Galen Gingrich. I'm wearing the little red vagina bracelet I bought the night before. He looks at the bracelet. Our eyes meet, and we both smile. My friend grabs my hand, pulls me out in front of the church, and we hail a cab. And we race across town to the community UU Church of New York City. 2 Unitarian Universalist church services on the same Sunday morning. I am in heaven. We run in. The church is full. We take our seats in the back just in time to hear the most amazing soprano singing A Balm in Gilead. And the minister, the Reverend Bruce Southworth, another one of our foremost Unitarian Universalist ministers, is preaching his Palm Sunday service. And of course, what is it? What would Jesus do? I think I'm finding Jesus all over in New York City. Reverend Bruce tells the story of an urban UU minister and his son who are running in Central Park. The minister is heading for a payphone to put in a pizza order so that it will be delivered by the time he and his son get back to their apartment, when a homeless man approaches the minister and his son and asks for money. Tired from running, the minister opens his pockets and says to the man who is asking for money, "Here, take all you need." And the homeless man is very surprised, and he said, "I'll take it all." And he does. Just then, the minister realizes he doesn't even have the change to make a phone call to order the pizza. So he looks at the homeless man and he says, "Can you spare some change?" "Sure," said the homeless man. "Take all you need." Reverend Bruce, the minister, continues his sermon talking about the changes that Rabbi Jesus wanted to bring to his people. In the end, of course, we know Jesus gives his life for something larger than himself. Emmanuel, God with us. Can you spare some change? Take all you need. When my friend and I are leaving the church, a homeless man comes up and asks my friend for money. She reaches into her bag, for some change. He takes the money and says thanks. And we begin to walk away when I notice that a $10 bill has fallen from my friend's purse. The man puts his shoe on the bill, thinking that he's covered it. But then he sees me. And he looks up and he says to my friend, I think this fell from your purse. I think this is your money. That's all right, she says. You need it more than I do right now. My friend then grabs my hand, pulling me forward to rush again on, and I'm absolutely dizzy now, whispering to myself over and over again, can you spare some change? Take all you need? What would Jesus do? My friend and I press on, walking, taking in the sights of the city, and we go to St. Patrick's Cathedral. I'd never been there before. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's one of the largest in the United States, with alcoves to the many saints, thousands and thousands of candles being lit. And I light one, but I look around at the glorious building, all the beauty and all the money that it's taken to build and maintain that building. And I say, this is not Rabbi Jesus. And I think, what would Jesus do? Well, after a long day of wandering around the city, we dash on to the theater where my friend has purchased us tickets ahead of time for us to see Hair. It had been exactly 40 years since I first saw it on Sunset Strip in 1969 at the Aquarius Theater. As they said in 1969, I am totally psyched. But of course, by this time, all I can think about is Jesus. And then I see him in the play. The change, it's all about change, threatening the status quo, the band of roaming hippies. My life is scrolling through my mind. What does this remind me of now? Before I had left on my trip, I had been reading Harvey Cox's book, When Jesus Comes to Harvard, as a way to prepare for my Easter sermon. In the book, Harvey Cox describes the first Palm Sunday. And we are in New York, and it's Palm Sunday, and we are at the theater. Cox had described Jesus' entry into Jerusalem as the very best of street theater. By riding into the city on a donkey on what would come to be called Palm Sunday, of course, Jesus didn't know that. He was there to mock the well-known Roman custom of the triumphal entry into the city of a new leader. Jesus' entry is both a taunt and a provocation to Rome. Of course, this wasn't yet a Christian holiday, and Jesus wouldn't have known anything about it anyway because he was a Jew. He had come to Jerusalem to celebrate Passover. It was simply a brazen display of non-violent rebellion. And here I am in New York City with my Jewish Unitarian Universalist friend, and I'm experiencing Hair as I did in 1969, 40 years later, as a display of non-violent rebellion. What would Jesus do? What if God was one of us? Breathless after the show, we stagger to the subway, and I watch the people, looking at every person as we rumble along under the streets of New York City, and I'm pondering, what if God was one of us, a stranger on the bus, after all? Perhaps I want to explore more about the meaning of Jesus' suffering. And what about Rabbi Jesus speaking truth to power? I am going to continue looking for Jesus. Of course, one can hardly not see Jesus everywhere. When I was at the airport on my way home from New York City, on the intercom, I heard James Taylor singing from his album, Fire and Rain. He's saying, "You got to look down upon me, Jesus, and help me take a stand." The day I came home from New York, I was shopping at Trader Joe's, and I saw these words painted on a car next to us. Powered by Jesus. I kidded my mother, who's Roman Catholic, who was in the car with me, pointing out that clearly there was no one in the car. And she said, Well, maybe that's just because you can't see him. That afternoon at Mom's hairdresser, I noticed a license plate in the parking lot that said, "Smile, Jesus loves you." My first thought was, egads. But then I thought of the Matt Talbots. And I thought of the homeless men on the street of New York City. And I wondered, what if God was one of us? Amen. And blessed be. Happy Easter. And now, if you have lighted a chalice, if you will take it with me and extinguish the flame. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light, which will remain in our hearts until we zoom again. While physically apart, we'll always be together in the spirit. Our benediction this morning is from Dag Hammarskjöld, former UN Secretary. He said, "God does not die on the day that we cease to believe in a deity, but we die on the day when our lives cease to be illuminated by a steady radiance, the source of which is beyond all reason." After our closing song today, you will have a chance again to write down the information about where you may send our contributions. I want to thank all of you for being with us. I've enjoyed looking at your various hats. We will hopefully see each other again, in person or physically distanced, while we are together in the spirit. Through our struggle and suffering, we are going to love this world back to life. Together, you and I, and all of us, for each other. Amen. And now we will sing, as we do every Sunday, our closing song, "Let There Be Peace on Earth." And please sing along if you'd like to.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, peace that was meant to be. With earth as our mother, we offer
Let us walk with each other. Perfect harmony.
Let peace begin with me.
Let this be my now.
With every step I take, let this be my song of vow. Take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally.